The toxic atmosphere of New Horizons colony churned like liquid poison, its murky green haze obscuring the jagged rock formations that define this miserable mining world. Kai Santos' body convulsed on the emergency medical platform, his protective suit in tatters, exposing skin that was rapidly blackening and dissolving like wet paper. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with a fury born of desperation. Her hands moved with practiced precision, but she knew the standard medical protocols were useless. The chemical contamination from the deep core mining operation was unlike anything in the medical databases. The Galactic Confederation's xenobiological research had long considered human biology primitive, barely worthy of mention in their vast archives of known species. "Stay with me, Kai," Elena muttered, her voice a mix of scientific determination and personal anguish. The monitoring systems screamed with warning alerts. Cellular degradation was progressing at an impossible rate. Most species would have been dead within seconds of such exposure. But Kai Santos was human, and humanity had always been full of surprises. Elena's fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up every possible treatment protocol. Her research had always suggested that human genetic structure was more complex than the Confederation's dismissive reports indicated. Something about the human genome remained fundamentally unmapped, a biological mystery that most xenobiologists considered beneath their attention. Kay's body began to change. At first it was almost imperceptible. A slight shimmer ran beneath his skin, like heat waves rising from desert sand. The blackened areas of tissue started to shift, not heal, exactly. Transform. Impossible, Elena whispered. New cellular structures were forming where destruction should have been absolute. The monitoring systems couldn't categorize what was happening. Genetic markers were rewriting themselves in real time, creating new defensive mechanisms faster than any known biological process. The colony's chief medical officer, Dr. Marcus Chen, burst into the room. A former Special Forces operative turned medical researcher, he moved with the precision of a soldier and the analytical mind of a scientist. "What's happening?" Marcus demanded, his eyes locked on the impossible transformation occurring before them. Elena could only shake her head. "I've never seen anything like this. His cellular structure is adapting, creating new defensive mechanisms faster than our equipment can track." Kay's eyes snapped open. They were different. The usual brown irises now contained flecks of metallic silver, shifting and moving like liquid mercury. His breathing, which moments ago had been ragged and failing, was now deep and controlled. The medical platform's restraints groaned as Kai sat up. "I feel," he paused, flexing his hands. "Different." Marcus ran a quick bioscan. The results were beyond comprehension. Kai's genetic structure had not just survived the toxic exposure, it had weaponized it. New cellular structures had formed that could potentially neutralize the most extreme environmental conditions. Outside the medical center, New Horizons colony continued its grim existence. Humans were the lowest-ranked species in the Galactic Confederation's hierarchy. They were used for the most dangerous mining operations, sent to worlds that would kill most other species within hours. Expendable. Forgettable. No one was watching when Kai Santos became something more. Elena's hands were shaking. Years of research, countless nights spent analyzing human genetic potential, had led to this moment. The Confederation's xenobiological reports had always described human biology as adaptable but unremarkable. They were wrong. Spectacularly, monumentally wrong. "We need to keep this quiet," Marcus said, his military training kicking in. "If the Confederation finds out." Kai interrupted him, his voice now carrying a resonance it never had before. "They're going to find out anyway." The metallic flecks in his eyes continued to shift, a visual representation of the profound biological transformation that had just occurred. Humanity's potential was no longer a theoretical concept. It was standing right in front of them, breathing, changing, evolving. In that moment, on a forgotten mining colony at the edge of known space, the first spark of humanity's galactic uprising was lit. And no one, Not the Galactic Confederation, not the advanced alien species who considered humans beneath consideration, was prepared for what was coming. The massive Calxarian warship hung above New Horizons like a judgment from the gods. Its obsidian hull blocked out what passed for sunlight on this miserable rock of a planet, casting an apocalyptic shadow across the human colony. Commander Zarek stood on the bridge, six-fingered hands clasped behind his back, mandibles clicking with anticipation of the coming cleansing. "Prepare planetary sterilization protocols," Zarek commanded, his translator rendering the words in crisp, emotionless Standard Galactic. "Colony designation: obsolete. Species classification: terminated." Below, in the colony's underground command center, Marcus Chen watched the approaching doom with a calm that belied the storm brewing within him. Kai Santos stood beside him, no longer the broken worker from the medical bay, but something entirely new. "They're going to kill everyone," whispered Sarah Rodriguez, Alina's younger sister and the colony's communication specialist. Her fingers danced across encrypted channels, gathering last-minute intelligence. Kai's response was unexpected. "No, they're not." The changes in Kai were subtle but profound. Where once he had been a standard mining worker, now he moved with a predatory grace. His skin seemed to shimmer slightly, as if molecules were constantly rearranging themselves beneath the surface. The metallic flecks in his eyes caught the dim light of the command center. Radiation sensors began to scream. The Calxarian ships were warming up their primary weapons, a concentrated burst of quantum-based radiation that would strip the planet's surface of all organic matter. It was a standard procedure for the Confederation when dealing with underperforming colonies. Humans were considered little more than glorified labor units, easily replaced, entirely expendable. Marcus pulled up the colony's defensive schematics. They were laughable. Outdated shield generators, minimal weapon systems, a few desperate mining lasers that would be less effective against a warship than a child's slingshot against a tank. But something was happening. The first wave of radiation hit the colony's surface. Normally, this would be a death sentence. Any biological organism would be instantly reduced to cellular ash. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. The human colonists began to change. In the agricultural domes, workers exposed to the radiation didn't die. Their skin hardened, developing microscopic crystalline structures that deflected and absorbed the incoming energy. In the mining tunnels, laborers whose bodies were already adapted to toxic environments started to mutate further, their cellular structures creating new defensive mechanisms in real time. Zarek's communication officer turned, mandibles clicking in confusion. "Commander, the radiation saturation is not producing expected cellular breakdown." On the colony's surface, entire sections were transforming. Skin became more resilient. Cellular structures rewrote themselves faster than the Calxarian sensors could track. What should have been a moment of total extinction was becoming something else entirely. Alina Rodriguez watched from her research lab, her scientific mind racing to understand the impossible transformation happening around her. Each exposed human wasn't just surviving. They were evolving. "It's a stress response," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "The human genome doesn't just adapt. It weaponizes adaptation." Marcus turned to Kai. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Kai's smile was something between a human expression and something entirely new. Not new. Hoped. The Calxarian warship began to prepare a second, more concentrated attack. Commander Zarek was not used to failure. His species had conquered entire star systems. Humanity was supposed to be a footnote in galactic history. Weak, unremarkable, easily expendable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As the second radiation wave approached, the human colonists of New Horizons stood their ground. Not in defiance, not in hope, but in the first true demonstration of a species about to rewrite the rules of galactic survival. The war for humanity's future had begun. 60 meters beneath the surface of New Horizons, the abandoned mining complex had transformed into humanity's most critical research facility. Massive cavern walls, reinforced with a combination of alien alloys and human ingenuity, housed laboratories that defied every known scientific protocol. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a group of 50 volunteers, each one a testament to human potential. They were miners, technicians, security personnel, ordinary people who had become extraordinary in the wake of the Calxarian attack. "What we're doing," Elena began, her voice echoing through the underground chamber, "is more than survival. We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of biological adaptation." Marcus Chen activated a holographic display. Genetic sequences danced in the air, showing the radical transformations observed in the colony's survivors. Each human exposed to extreme conditions had developed unique adaptive mechanisms. One miner could now regulate body temperature in environments that would freeze or burn any other known species. Another had developed a cellular structure that could neutralize toxic atmospheres. Kai Santos, now the lead test subject, demonstrated the most profound changes. He stepped into a sealed chamber designed to simulate the most extreme conditions imaginable. Radiation levels that would instantly kill, temperatures that would vaporize most organic matter, atmospheric pressures that would crush a body like a paper cup. The observation team watched in stunned silence. Minutes passed, then an hour. Kai not only survived but seemed to thrive. His body was actively consuming the hostile environment, breaking down its most dangerous elements and converting them into biological energy. "It's not just adaptation," Elena explained to the gathered researchers. "It's active transformation. The human genome doesn't just respond to stress, it weaponizes it." Underground communication networks began to light up. Encrypted messages spread across human colonies, sharing fragments of their discoveries. What had begun as a desperate survival mechanism was becoming a coordinated evolution. Sarah Rodriguez, managing the communication systems, intercepted and decoded Galactic Confederation transmissions. Panic was spreading through the upper echelons of alien bureaucracy. Humanity was no longer just a footnote. They were becoming a question mark in the established galactic order. "They're scared," Sarah told Marcus. "The Confederation is terrified of what we're becoming." Marcus's eyes narrowed. His military background gave him a strategic perspective that complemented Elena's scientific approach. "Good," he responded. "Fear is a powerful motivator." The volunteers continued their tests. Each exposure to extreme conditions revealed new capabilities: cellular regeneration, environmental adaptation, neural reconfiguration that allowed for faster processing and enhanced sensory perception. Kai emerged from the test chamber, his body subtly different from when he entered. Metallic highlights seemed to flow beneath his skin, like living mercury. His eyes reflected an intelligence that was both human and something more. "We're not just surviving," Kai told the group. "We're evolving into something the galaxy has never seen before." Elena's research suggested this was more than a random mutation. Humanity's genetic structure contained dormant potential, a complex adaptive mechanism that had been overlooked by centuries of xenobiological study. They weren't just changing. They were unlocking a fundamental evolutionary strategy that could rewrite the rules of biological existence. As news of their discoveries spread, human colonies across the galaxy began to take notice. What had started as a desperate response to extinction was becoming a revolution. The underground facility hummed with possibility. Humanity was no longer just fighting to survive. They were preparing to transform. The abandoned alien research station hung in the void of space like a forgotten ghost, its systems dormant for decades. Marcus Chen's strike team approached with a combination of technological precision and biological adaptability that would have been impossible mere months ago. "Breach point identified," whispered Aria Zhang, the team's neural interface specialist. Her eyes flickered with augmented reality overlays, scanning potential entry points that would have been invisible to standard detection systems. Marcus's combat exosuit moved with a fluidity that defied its massive size. No longer a simple piece of equipment, the suit was a living extension of human potential. Biological sensors integrated directly with neural pathways, creating a symbiotic relationship between human and technology that no other species had achieved. The station's security systems were legendary, designed by the Archival Collective, a race of hyper-advanced technologists who considered most species little more than primitive organisms. The facility had repelled countless infiltration attempts. Its quantum lock doors, adaptive AI defense networks, and molecular disassembly traps had made it an impenetrable fortress. They would break through in minutes. Kai Santos led the initial breach. His transformed body moved differently now, part human, part something entirely new. Where most would see a complex locking mechanism, Kai saw a biological puzzle. His mutated cellular structure could interface directly with the station's technological defenses, reading and adapting to their complex encryption in real time. A series of impossible connections occurred. Alien technology that had resisted every known hacking technique simply opened. "We're in," Kai reported, his voice carrying a resonance that was part human communication, part technological transmission. The interior of the research station was a marvel of alien engineering. Holographic interfaces shimmered with data streams that would have driven a standard human mind to madness. Computational matrices that could process millennia of information in microseconds lined the walls. Elena Rodriguez moved through the facility, her scientific mind racing. This wasn't just about stealing technology. This was about understanding a fundamental approach to knowledge that humanity had never conceived. "The Archival Collective doesn't just store information," she muttered, interfacing with a data core. "They integrate it, become it." Marcus watched as Aria began the delicate process of data extraction. Her neural interfaces were no longer simple communication devices. They were living bridges between human consciousness and alien technological paradigms. A breakthrough occurred. The station's primary data core, a quantum computational matrix that had resisted every known method of access, suddenly interfaced with Aria's neural network. But it wasn't a standard data transfer. The core was learning, adapting. The human neural patterns were being processed, analyzed, integrated. "My God," Aria whispered, "it's communicating." Fragments of technological knowledge began to flow. Not just data, but entire conceptual frameworks. Approaches to computational thinking that existed between mathematics and consciousness. The humans weren't just accessing alien technology, they were being invited to understand it. Marcus's combat exosuit began to transform. Molecular structures shifted, adaptive materials reconfiguring themselves based on the incoming data stream. What had been a piece of equipment became a living system, responsive and evolving. Kai approached a sealed chamber that had resisted every previous attempt at access. His mutated cellular structure reached out, not with a physical touch, but with a form of biological communication that bridged technological and organic boundaries. The chamber opened. Inside lay something beyond technological classification. A device. A living system. A computational matrix that existed in multiple states of potential. The humans couldn't immediately categorize it. "We're not just stealing technology," Marcus realized. "We're being invited to a new way of understanding existence." As they prepared to extract their findings, none of them understood the full implications of what was happening. Humanity was no longer just adapting to technology. They were becoming something entirely new. The sky above New Horizons turned black with the arrival of the Galactic Confederation's punitive fleet. Thousands of warships, each a testament to technological superiority, accumulated over millennia, prepared to deliver what they believed would be a final, definitive judgment on humanity. Commander Zarek stood on the bridge of the flagship Absolute Judgment, his multiple eyes scanning the colony's surface with cold calculation. "Commence total planetary elimination," he commanded, mandibles clicking with anticipated victory. But humanity had other plans. The first wave of energy weapons struck the planet's surface, quantum disruptors capable of reducing entire continents to atomic dust. Standard planetary defense systems would have collapsed instantly. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The weapons were absorbed. Massive energy dissipation fields materialized across the colony's surface. But these were no standard shield technologies. They were living systems, biological technological hybrids that adapted faster than the attacking fleet could recalibrate. Marcus Chen led the human defense from an underground command center that was anything but standard. His neural interfaces connected directly to the colony's defensive systems, but it was more than technological control. It was a symbiotic relationship between human consciousness and adaptive technology. Target acquired. Marcus spoke, his voice triggering a cascade of defensive responses. Kai Santos stood at the center of the defensive line, his body now a perfect fusion of human biology and technological adaptation. Where most species would deploy mechanical weapons, the humans had become the weapon. The first Kelxarian assault shuttles breached the outer atmosphere. Designed to survive the most extreme planetary invasions, they carried shock troops meant to eliminate any resistance. They never reached the ground. Kai's transformed body interfaced with the colony's defensive network. Molecular restructuring occurred in milliseconds. The approaching shuttles found their quantum drives suddenly neutralized, their advanced materials breaking down at the cellular level. Elena Rodriguez monitored the battle from her research station, her scientific mind processing the impossible data streams. "We're not just defending," she reported to the command team. "We're actively rewriting the rules of technological engagement." The Galactic Confederation's most advanced weaponry became obsolete within minutes of first contact. Energy weapons that should have vaporized entire city blocks were absorbed and transformed. Quantum torpedoes intended to crack planetary crusts were redirected, their destructive potential turned into a defensive energy field. Invasion troops found their most advanced combat suits becoming nothing more than dead weight as human adaptive technologies rendered them useless. Zarek watched in mounting horror. Humanity was doing something impossible. They weren't just surviving. They were evolving in real time, turning the most advanced technological assault in galactic history into a learning experience. "Impossible," he muttered, watching entire squadrons of elite shock troops become neutralized by what seemed like living environmental adaptation. The battle wasn't just a military confrontation. It was an evolutionary demonstration. Humans moved across the battlefield like living technology. Their bodies shifted and adapted. Wounds healed instantaneously. Environmental challenges became opportunities for further adaptation. What the Confederation saw as a simple mining colony was transforming into something that defied every known principle of biological and technological warfare. Marcus's voice cut through the chaos. "This isn't just a defense," he broadcast across all frequencies. "This is humanity's declaration of existence." As the hours passed, the Galactic Confederation's most powerful fleet found itself facing an enemy that couldn't be defeated by conventional, or even unconventional, means. Humanity had become something more than a species. They had become a fundamental force of adaptation. News travels faster than light in the interconnected galaxy, and the story of New Horizons spread like a quantum virus through communication networks. Every oppressed species, every marginalized colony, every forgotten outpost received fragments of humanity's impossible victory. Sarah Rodriguez sat in the underground communication center, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that now seemed to anticipate her movements. What had begun as an encrypted broadcast was becoming something more, a living network of resistance. "They're responding," she told Elena, her voice a mix of excitement and disbelief. "Not just humans. Everyone." The data streams told an impossible story. On mining colonies controlled by the Kralixian Combine, workers began to exhibit similar adaptive capabilities. Maintenance crews on deep space research stations discovered unexpected resilience. Entire populations of subjugated species started to change, inspired by humanity's demonstration of evolutionary potential. Kai Santos had become more than an individual. He was a symbol, a living proof of what was possible when a species refused to be defined by external limitations. "It's not just about fighting," Kai explained to a gathering of colony leaders. "It's about transformation. about potential. Alina's research revealed the deeper truth. Humanity's adaptive mechanism wasn't unique. It was a dormant potential that existed in many species, suppressed by centuries of galactic control. The humans hadn't invented a new form of evolution. They had simply been the first to unlock it. Encrypted communication networks began to pulse with a new kind of energy. Not just information, but a fundamental shift in collective consciousness. Oppressed species shared adaptation techniques. Survival strategies became evolutionary blueprints. The Galactic Confederation watched in mounting terror. Their most sophisticated surveillance systems struggled to track the spreading change. It wasn't a rebellion in the traditional sense. No centralized command structure existed. No single leader coordinated the movement. It was a spontaneous, collective awakening of evolutionary potential. Marcus Chen understood the strategic implications immediately. "We're not creating an army," he told the colony's leadership council. "We're sparking a galactic renaissance." On 100 different worlds, workers began to change. Miners developing resistance to toxic environments. Maintenance crews adapting to extreme radiation. Communication specialists developing neural interfaces that defied previous technological limitations. The Kralixian monitoring stations detected the first signs of widespread mutation. Entire planetary populations were developing adaptive capabilities that should have taken millennia of controlled evolution. How? Demanded the Kralixian High Council. How is this possible? The answer was both simple and profound. Humanity had shown that adaptation was not just a biological process. It was a fundamental approach to existence, a way of seeing the universe not as a fixed system, but as a constantly evolving opportunity. Sarah intercepted a high-level Confederation communication that sent chills through the entire colony. "They're preparing a galactic-wide suppression protocol," she reported, attempting to shut down the adaptive response across multiple species. Kay's response was immediate. Let them try. The rebellion was no longer just human. It had become something far more dangerous. A collective awakening of evolutionary potential that spread faster than any technology could track. Humanity had not just started a rebellion. They had initiated a fundamental transformation of galactic existence. The Galactic Concordance Chamber had never witnessed anything like this diplomatic summit. Representatives from thousands of species gathered, their traditional hierarchies crumbling in the face of humanity's unprecedented challenge to the established order. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the massive holographic arena, her presentation a living demonstration of evolutionary potential. Behind her, holographic displays showed the incredible adaptations humanity had discovered, biological systems that could interface with technology, environmental transformations that defied every known scientific principle. "We're not presenting a weapon," Elena explained, her voice resonating through translation matrices that struggled to capture the full depth of her communication. "We're presenting a new understanding of existence." Marcus Chen stood beside her, his presence a physical manifestation of their evolutionary breakthrough. Where diplomats typically relied on rhetoric, he represented something more, a living bridge between biological potential and technological innovation. The archival collective's representative, a being of pure energy contained within a complex crystalline form, spoke first. Its communication was less words and more a direct neural transmission that forced each listener to process complex multidimensional concepts simultaneously. Unprecedented, the collective consciousness transmitted, not a mutation, a fundamental restructuring of evolutionary potential. Kai Santos demonstrated their capabilities live. He stepped into a chamber designed to simulate the most extreme conditions imaginable. Radiation levels that would vaporize most organic matter. Temperatures that would reduce complex biological systems to atomic dust. Atmospheric pressures that would crush matter into fundamental particles. Hours passed. Kai not only survived but seemed to thrive. The chamber became a window into a new understanding of biological potential. Humanity wasn't just adapting. They were transforming the very concept of adaptation. Diplomatic representatives from the most advanced species watched in a combination of terror and fascination. The Kralixian delegation's multiple sensory organs flickered with complex emotional responses that translated roughly to a mixture of fear, respect, and absolute confusion. "This challenges everything," whispered the Quantum Regulatory Council's chief diplomat. "Not just biological understanding. Our entire conceptual framework of species development." Alina's presentation went beyond simple scientific demonstration. She revealed the deeper truth that humanity's adaptive mechanism was not a unique mutation, but a dormant potential that existed across multiple species. They had simply been the first to unlock it. "We're not superior," she explained. "We're demonstrating a pathway, a way of understanding existence that isn't about conquest, but about continuous transformation." Marcus added the strategic perspective. Their adaptive capabilities weren't just a biological curiosity. They represented a fundamental shift in how species could interact with their environment, with technology, with each other. The summit became more than a diplomatic meeting. It was a pivotal moment in galactic history. Kai's demonstration continued. His body became a living interface between biological potential and technological innovation. Cellular structures that could process information faster than the most advanced quantum computers. Adaptive mechanisms that could interface with any technological system. "This is not an invasion," Kai transmitted directly into the neural networks of the assembled delegates. "This is an invitation to reimagine what was possible, to see evolution not as a fixed process, but as a continuous, adaptive journey." The galactic concordance chamber fell silent. Thousands of species processed a simple, terrifying realization. Humanity was no longer just another species. They had become a fundamental force of galactic transformation. 5 years after the Galactic Concordance Summit, the universe had transformed. Humanity was no longer defined by its previous limitations. Colonies that were once considered marginal outposts had become centers of evolutionary research. What had begun as a desperate survival mechanism on New Horizons had become a fundamental approach to existence that reshaped entire civilizations. Alina Rodriguez now led the Galactic Adaptive Research Institute, a collaborative organization that brought together species from across the known universe. Her laboratories were living entities, adaptive research centers that changed and evolved with the research itself. "We're not just studying adaptation," she would tell her multi-species research teams. "We're practicing it." Marcus Chen had become something between a diplomat and a strategic evolutionary architect. His neural interfaces allowed him to coordinate complex adaptive responses across entire planetary systems. Where once militaries planned conquests, now they collaborated on evolutionary potential. Kai Santos remained the living symbol of their transformation. No longer entirely human in the traditional sense, he had become a bridge between biological potential and technological innovation. His body was a constantly evolving system, a living demonstration of what was possible when a species refused to be limited by previous definitions. The Galactic Confederation had been fundamentally restructured. What was once a hierarchical system of control had become a collaborative network of evolutionary potential. Species that were once considered inferior now contributed unique adaptive capabilities to a collective understanding of existence. On 100 different worlds, the changes manifested in ways both subtle and profound. Mining colonies became centers of ecological restoration. Workers developed capabilities that allowed them to heal planetary ecosystems as they worked. Technological interfaces became living systems that responded to environmental needs. Communication networks evolved into collective consciousness platforms that valued adaptation over information control. Sarah Rodriguez managed a network of adaptive communication systems that defied previous technological limitations. Messages no longer just carried information, they carried evolutionary potential. Each communication became an opportunity for collective growth. The research from New Horizons had revealed a profound truth. Adaptation was not just a biological process. It was a fundamental approach to existence, a way of seeing the universe as a continuous opportunity for transformation. "We didn't conquer the galaxy," Marcus would explain to young researchers. "We invited it to grow with us." Kai stood on the observation deck of the research station that had once been the abandoned alien research facility. His body, part human, part something entirely new, looked out at the stars. The metallic highlights beneath his skin shifted and moved, a living testament to continuous transformation. Alina approached, her own neural interfaces showing the complex adaptive networks that now connected species across vast distances. "We're not finished," she said. It was both a statement and a promise. Kai smiled, a human expression that contained something more. "We're just beginning." The stars seemed to pulse with possibility. Humanity had not just survived. They had shown the galaxy a different way of existing, not through conquest, but through continuous, collaborative transformation. In the vast darkness of space, they had become something more than a species. They had become potential itself.